as a community of friends of Jesus, as believers. And I know I can rely on each and every one of you to walk with me.
That the instruments of modern communication can have for the church and for announcing the message.
The cameras were rolling. The crowd was silent. Two of the most recognized figures in the world, Pope Leo XIV and Kate Middleton, stood face to face in Vatican City. What was supposed to be a routine diplomatic gesture took a shocking turn. As Kate extended her hand for a polite, respectful handshake, Pope Leo refused. He didn't just ignore it. He folded his hands, stepped back slightly, and looked directly into her eyes. The moment froze. Gasps rippled through the crowd. But what happened after that left the world speechless. This wasn't just a snub. It wasn't about disrespect. It was something deeper, something rooted in centuries of tradition, spiritual symbolism, and subtle diplomacy. And what Pope Leo did next was so unexpected, so quietly powerful, that even Kate herself was momentarily stunned. The footage exploded online. Millions hit replay. The world asked, why? Why did the Pope reject her handshake? And what did his next move really mean? Today, we're diving into the truth behind this viral moment, the real story behind the headline, Pope Leo XIV refuses Kate Middleton's handshake. What he does next stuns the world. To understand the weight of this moment, we need to know who we're dealing with. Pope Leo XIV, elected just 3 years ago, is known for his strict adherence to tradition, but also for his quiet charm. Unlike his predecessors, he doesn't seek the spotlight. He rarely gives interviews, avoids political statements, and stays deeply rooted in the spiritual. His papacy has been marked by a return to classical rituals and a deep focus on humility and reverence. He's a man who believes in gestures over speeches, symbols over sound bites. Then there's Kate Middleton, now Catherine, Princess of Wales. Beloved across the globe, Kate is more than just a royal figurehead. She's a modern icon of elegance, diplomacy, and charity. Representing the British monarchy on a global stage, her presence carries not just glamour, but political weight. Every movement, every word is carefully crafted, and every gesture, especially in international settings, is part of a larger message. Their meeting was no accident. It was a high-profile moment arranged as part of a goodwill visit to strengthen UK Vatican ties. Expectations were clear: formalities, respect, photos. But beneath the surface, there was more. Two powerful institutions, two traditions, two views of the world, meeting in one quiet, tense moment. And then, the handshake. It happened inside the Apostolic Palace, under the grand frescoes and marble columns that have witnessed centuries of history. Kate Middleton approached the Pope with grace, extending her hand in a poised, deliberate gesture, one that mirrored countless diplomatic encounters before. The camera shutters clicked, reporters leaned forward, and everyone expected the same polite script: a handshake, a smile, maybe a few words exchanged. But Pope Leo XIV did something that broke the rhythm. He looked at her hand, then gently folded his own hands together in front of his chest. He offered a subtle bow of his head, eyes locked on hers, and remained still. No handshake, no touch, just silence. For a brief second, no one moved. Kate, ever composed, held her expression, a royal trained for unpredictable moments. The room froze. The Pope didn't flinch. He wasn't rude. He wasn't cold. In fact, it was a gesture filled with a strange kind of calm, like he had practiced this very moment in his mind. The Vatican staff, though used to rigid protocol, looked unsure. Was this intentional? A slip? Or something deeply symbolic? The cameras captured every frame. The video was online within minutes, and within hours, it had gone viral. The world saw a pope who refused to shake hands with a princess. But what they missed, at first, was the nuance. This wasn't about rejecting her. This was about making a statement. A message not with words, but with silence and symbolism. And it would all make sense with what he did next. Because just seconds later, the Pope made a move that changed everything, and shifted the meaning of the moment entirely. Instead of the expected handshake, Pope Leo XIV stepped slightly closer and did something entirely unexpected. He raised his right hand and made the sign of the cross directly over Kate Middleton, It wasn't rushed. It wasn't theatrical. It was deliberate, slow, and powerful. The blessing, traditionally reserved for moments of deep spiritual significance, stunned everyone in the room. Kate, visibly taken aback for the first time, instinctively bowed her head. It was an ancient gesture of humility meeting centuries of monarchy. This wasn't a snub. It was an elevation. The Pope's choice to bypass the handshake and instead offer a blessing carried heavy symbolism. In Catholic tradition, a handshake is a greeting. A blessing is a spiritual act, a sign of sacred respect. By blessing Kate instead of shaking her hand, Pope Leo was signaling something profound, that their encounter wasn't just about formality, it was about grace, legacy, and reverence beyond politics. Moments later, he took her hand, not to shake it, but to briefly hold it between his palms. Not rushed, not performative. Then he stepped back. The act was quiet, but its message echoed loudly. The Pope wasn't breaking protocol. He was reshaping it, on his own terms. And with that, the narrative flipped. What first looked like a rejection became something holier. The internet exploded. Within hours, the moment between Pope Leo XIV and Kate Middleton had become one of the most talked about events in recent diplomatic history. News outlets around the world raced to explain the gesture. Social media lit up with theories, praise, criticism, and memes. Some called it a bold act of reverence, others labeled it an outdated snub. Pope refuses princess, screamed headlines across Europe. In the US, morning shows dissected the body language like it was a Super Bowl replay. Twitter became a battlefield of interpretations. But the reactions weren't just noise, they were revealing. Catholic commentators praised the Pope for staying true to spiritual symbolism. This wasn't about rudeness, one Vatican insider explained on Italian TV. It was about putting the sacred above the ceremonial. Papal supporters applauded the blessing as a return to substance over show. British tabloids, however, were more sensational. "Kate snubbed in Rome," ran one headline, though many quickly reversed course after Vatican officials released a brief statement clarifying the gesture. The Holy Father chose to offer a blessing rather than a handshake, in keeping with his personal and spiritual style. Royal watchers were intrigued. The British monarchy, usually flawless in protocol, didn't issue a formal response, but insiders suggested the princess was deeply honored by the Pope's blessing and found the moment moving and memorable. Experts on diplomacy pointed to the increasing personalization of global figures. "We're in a new era," said one political analyst. This wasn't just two figureheads following a script, it was two symbols acting with intention. Meanwhile, millions of ordinary viewers weighed in. TikTok was flooded with slowed-down clips of the moment, set to dramatic music. Hashtags like Pope and Princess and Holy Handshake started trending. In a fractured world, this quiet, 20-second moment ignited a global conversation about faith, respect, and the changing face of diplomacy. What looked like a simple gesture, refusing a handshake and offering a blessing, carried layers of symbolism that resonated far beyond the Vatican walls. First, the rejection of the handshake wasn't a rejection of Kate Middleton. It was a rejection of formality in favor of spirituality. Pope Leo XIV, known for his minimalist yet deeply symbolic approach, was sending a message. Sacred encounters should not be reduced to political gestures. In his world, a handshake might imply equality and protocol, but a blessing transcends titles and traditions. He treated her not just as a royal, but as a soul. Second, offering a blessing in public was a bold move. Popes often reserve blessings for large audiences or private moments, not typically during diplomatic protocol. By doing it spontaneously and directly, Pope Leo showed a willingness to disrupt norms for the sake of meaning. It was his way of reminding the world that spirituality can, and should, be lived visibly, not hidden behind closed doors. Third, this moment created a subtle power balance shift. The Princess of Wales, representing one of the most powerful and historical monarchies in the world, willingly received a spiritual act from the head of the Catholic Church. There was no hierarchy here, only mutual respect. The Pope didn't just avoid a handshake, He elevated the interaction into something timeless. Finally, the move sparked broader questions about tradition versus modernity. In a time when global leaders are expected to perform diplomacy with smiles and scripted behavior, Pope Leo broke the mold. He didn't disrespect protocol, he reframed it. And in doing so, he reminded everyone watching that real power doesn't always come with a handshake. Sometimes it comes with stillness, silence, and a gesture that speaks louder than words. In a world hungry for spectacle, Pope Leo XIV delivered something richer, a moment of quiet power that turned a diplomatic routine into a global reflection. By refusing Kate Middleton's handshake and offering a blessing instead, he didn't cause controversy, he created conversation. It wasn't about disrespect, it was about redefining what respect looks like. And in that instant, under the marble halls of the Vatican, tradition, humility, and grace all met. If you found this story as surprising and meaningful as we did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that go beyond the headlines.